In the hills of northeast Kyoto, Tendai Buddhist monks undertake a practice called Kaihogyo, literally translating to circling the mountain. Over the next 7 years, they walk 1,000 days around Mount Hiei, covering the distance of about 2 Olympic marathons daily in handmade straw sandals. They move through mountainous terrain, stopping only to pray at shrines along the route. After day 101, they are no longer permitted to stop. They must complete the practice or take their own life. For this reason, they carry a knife at their waist as a reminder of their commitment. Midway through this 7-year journey, they undergo a process called the Doyorai, 9 days without food, water, or sleep, sitting upright chanting mantras while 2 monks sit beside them to make sure they don't close their eyes. In 450 years of recorded history, only 51 monks have managed to complete it. The mountain today has unmarked graves for those who couldn't. In the harsh Syrian desert, stylite monks spend decades, sometimes their entire adult lives, atop pillars no wider than a single square meter. In northern Greece, devotees of the Anastasia walk barefoot across coals burning above 1,000 degrees. In the Himalayas, Tibetan Buddhist monks practice Tomo, meaning inner fire meditation, where through visualization alone, they generate enough body heat to dry soaking wet sheets in below freezing conditions. Again, researchers found that breathing alone couldn't do it. The heat required belief. Something's going on here. In places that share nothing but religion, people seem to be able to tap into miraculous, almost superhuman feats. Religious practice seems to function as a sociological pill, a placebo of sorts, suggesting an evolutionary advantage powerful enough to let it persist across almost every human society, and in modern times resist rationality's attempts to replace it. Maybe it's in that resistance that we've forgotten what religion actually was. Perhaps the rationalist eyes have lied to us about religion all along. So what exactly is going on in these religious communities? The Tomo monk seemingly isn't cold, the stylites don't appear lonely, the firewalkers don't appear to be in pain. These aren't performances. The physiological measurements confirm that. So the question is what religion is doing to the body and why the body seems to respond. The answer starts, of course, with neurochemistry. Religious practice reliably produces endorphin release, which acts as the body's internal morphine. Meaning the body, under the influence of belief, isn't simply enduring through willpower, it's literally manufacturing its own anesthetic. But endorphins don't explain Tomo, right? They don't explain a monk raising his body temperature enough to steam frozen cloth. For that, you need a more interesting explanation. That belief may be doing something to the autonomous nervous system, the part of your biology that runs unconsciously, the part that controls body temperature, immune response, vascular function, which by definition you cannot consciously control. Except apparently you can, under the right conditions. What Tomo research revealed is that the meditating mind was reaching into a system that neuroscience had classified as involuntary. That classification may have been initially wrong, or more precisely, it may only be true in the absence of the right cognitive faculties, which is where the suggestibility data becomes even more interesting. The capacity for belief to produce measurable physical effects peaks at around age 10 and falls sharply from there. The prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for reality testing and the suppression of imaginative states, doesn't fully mature until the mid-20s. Children aren't more gullible in some trivial sense. The pre-developed body seems to keep the gate between mind and body open. The adult brain seems to close that gate. It builds inhibitory responses specifically designed to stop thought from bleeding into physiology, which says a lot about our modern societal practices and specifically what exactly goes into losing this seemingly amazing ability. What the Kaihogyo monks seem to have discovered through years of practice is that the gate can be forced back open, that the ceiling the adult nervous system imposes on itself isn't necessarily fixed, that what looks like superhuman endurance from the outside is actually the nervous system operating closer to its real capacity with the inhibitory layer temporarily removed. Perhaps religion survived this long, and thus the brain structures that bring it about in humans was likely evolutionary selected for, not just because it increases social cohesion or answered troubling questions, but because it's a method for reliably accessing a biological trait that the modern mind seems to have been trained out of reaching. And it turns out that same mechanism, right, the one that lets a monk survive 9 days without water, can, under different conditions, kill a person just as efficiently as it saves one.
I've said it's 400 years. Look how long, and the people, they still can't see. Why do they fight against?
The nocebo, a Latin phrase translating literally to I shall harm, is what happens when genuine belief harms instead of helps. Though not as well known as its counterpart, the placebo, its effects are just as real and, as you can imagine, far more dangerous. Walter Cannon, the Harvard physiologist who gave us the term fight or flight, spent years documenting what he called voodoo death, cases from Aboriginal Australia and South America where people who believed they had been cursed by a figure of spiritual authority simply died seemingly without any physical cause. Cannon's 1942 paper proposed that the mechanism was actually sustained sympathetic nervous system activation, where the body, convinced of its own death, executes a physiological shutdown. Cortisol and adrenaline floods indefinitely, followed shortly by cardiovascular collapse. Death by self-fulfilling prophecy. This would be easy to dismiss as old anthropology, except modern medicine has documented the same thing in hospitals. Patients misdiagnosed with terminal cancer and given weeks to live have died on schedule, despite the original diagnoses being wrong. The belief in one's death becomes the cause of it. There's a striking case from the 1970s, documented by researcher Clifton Meador, a man named Vance Vanders, who was hexed by a local witch doctor in Alabama, stopped eating and began rapidly deteriorating from the inside. His hospital physicians found nothing physically wrong with him. He was dying without a diagnosis. As a last-ditch effort, his physician, Dr. Drayton Doherty, allegedly staged an elaborate fake cure by making Vance vomit and secretly producing a lizard, claiming it has been removed from his body, a clever counter-ritual. Vance, convinced the curse had been lifted, rapidly recovered within weeks. The belief that had been killing him was replaced by a belief that reversed it, and his body followed both instructions with equal obedience. This is called the nocebo-mediated mortality, and it sits in the medical literature without a clean resolution. The implication being that belief operating through identical biological channels as any drug can constitute a lethal dose. The Tomo monk and the cursed man in Cannon's case studies are running on identical belief-based mechanisms, the only difference being what direction that belief is pointed towards. Which means we're not talking about the power of positive thinking, we're talking about a primary physiological force that the human body has no defense against, and when the conditions are right, one that religion is uniquely poised to exploit.